All right, so we're going to do our power rankings here. Jeff and I do this every week for the National Football League. Now, I just want to harken back to what Bill Connolly said 2 segments ago, which is that his SP+, right, he's got Tennessee 10th in the country, okay? It's predictive moving forward. It won't matter because Tennessee's only got, they're not going to play beyond where anything would matter. So I just want to let you know that these things age well typically. And so with that in mind, I want to start at 1. Here's what I'm going to do, Jeff. Instead of starting at 10 and 9, where people are going to lose their minds, I'm going to start at 1 because 1 through 8, people should be like, oh, yeah, I can see that. All right, so here's number 1, the Arizona Cardinals. Leader in the clubhouse. There's no reason to knock them out. They've been number 1 for weeks. Arizona, who got by the Colt McCoy weeks, no problem whatsoever into their bye. They should get Kyler Murray back after the bye. They're number 1. The Green Bay Packers. Listen, I've had them number 2 for weeks now. Had them against the Rams. Green Bay number 2. And I got to tell you, I don't think there's any problem with having Green Bay at number 2 as good as they've looked. And they may not lose another game, for all you know down the stretch looking at the schedule. Tampa Bay, defending Super Bowl champs, number 3. Tampa Bay goes into Indianapolis, trails by 10 at the half, and then comes storming back to beat what I think is a very good Colts team. In fact, I have the Colts rated so highly, you may lose your mind. But Tampa Bay's number 3 for me. Dallas. Now, here's where it gets into, am I going to knock a team down for not having players? And I'm pretty consistent with this, that generally I won't do that. So Dallas remains number 4 for me. I'm not knocking them for losing with 14 penalties to the Raiders on Thanksgiving because they didn't have their guys at wideout. And so, yeah, Dallas remains 4. I still think they're the 4th best team in football. The Colts are 5 for me. That's where this starts to get a little weird for people. I really think that the 6-6 Indianapolis Colts are a team that is being completely underrated by the market. I made a futures bet on them this past week. Nobody's talking about them. 5 turnovers against the Buccaneers. I think you have to kind of look past those kinds of things generally and think that those are outliers. I will say this, Tampa Bay did put a great script together on how to beat the Colts, which is to limit Jonathan Taylor and dare Carson Wentz to play a perfect game. But I got the Colts at number 5. I got the Chiefs at number 6. And yes, if the Colts are playing the Chiefs on a neutral, I think the Colts are a better football team. I really do. Let the hate wash over me. I know everybody's all up about the Chiefs. I got the Chiefs at 6. Let's relax, everybody. I just don't have them in the top 5. Chiefs are number 6 where they stand right now. But I'll tell you, if they get punched in the mouth, I really wonder how they'll react in a game. 7 and 8 are the Bills and the Patriots, who both play each other on Monday night. Bills 3-point home favorites. We even saw a 2.5 now on the Bills. I'm not as sold on either of these teams, especially the Patriots, as others are. Not especially the Patriots, because what I mean by that is more people are sold on the Patriots than they are the Bills currently. But I got the Bills 7 and the Patriots 8. Now, here's where it starts to get wacky. So that's why I wanted to go 1 through 8 first, because just to establish some cred. But 9 to 10, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. The Rams have lost 3 in a row. You're not staying in my top 10 if you lose 3 in a row and you're basically at full strength. Sorry, you're just not anymore. Bengals on the outside looking in, barely. Ravens, even with the best record in the AFC and how they looked against the Browns, you're just on the outside looking in too. I got the Niners 9. Remember, Football Outsiders had the Niners 9 2 weeks ago, before they even won these football games. Or 3 weeks ago, before they even beat the Rams, I believe. I got the Niners 9 now. I think they're that good. They don't have Debo this week. But again, I don't penalize for injuries in the way that others do. And I think that will age well with the Niners, who right now are the number 6 spot in the NFC. And number 10, holding on for dear life, and if they do lose one more, they'll be out. But the Tennessee Titans at 10, who most people think stink, they don't have their 3 best offensive players. Again, Derrick Henry, Julio Jones, A.J. Brown. And oh, by the way, the last 2 weeks, they're -9 in turnovers. It's always fascinating to me how people overlook little things like that. I say little as a joke. So those are my top 10, 1 through 10. And I think, by the way, after like 13, it kind of falls off a cliff. Jeffrey, your turn, sir.
First time we've had a very different looking top 10.
Yes, we do.
Between the two of us. We agree 1, 2, 3.
Oh, there you go.
We agree.
Okay.
Arizona number 1. There's no argument there. Green Bay hops Tampa Bay because at this point, I trust Green Bay's defense more than I trust Tampa's defense, which is a statement I did not anticipate saying at any point this year. But based off of what we've seen the last 6 weeks, I know Tampa's defense is getting healthier. Green Bay's defense has been great other than the Minnesota game for the last 6 weeks. So they move up to 2, Tampa's 3. Now this is where the fun begins here, Gil. I have New England all the way at number 4.
You love New England.
You know what? It's more that I just really don't like anyone else. And the New England defense over the last 6 weeks has been the best unit in football, period. So I'm going to take the elite coach, the elite defense, and put them at number 4. Now, the one thing with these rankings is 4 through 12 are unbelievably jumbled for me.
Yeah.
So if there was a point where I considered putting the 49ers in the top 5, and they're not even in the top 10. So it just shows how jumbled it is. Kansas City's at 5. Really just if we're looking outward here, Kansas City has a legitimate shot to get the number 1 seed.
They do.
And if they get the number 1 seed, they're probably making it back to the Super Bowl, even though I don't think they're really that good.
You could say that about anybody who gets the number 1 seed.
So they're number 5. Dallas at 6. Mike McCarthy still. I'm starting to use the Mike McCarthy tax more.
The McCarthy tax.
As we get closer to the playoffs. Because for Dallas to win 3 straight playoff games, and 2 of them having to be over, in all likelihood, Green Bay, Arizona, and Tampa Bay, I don't see them doing that with McCarthy, so they go down a little bit. The Rams at 7 are still very talented. At some point, you expect them to put it together. But
how many games are they going to lose before you knock them out?
Well, if they somehow lose to Jacksonville, we're not going to see them again probably for the rest of the year. But
I don't think any team can survive 3 in a row and still remain in the top 10.
No, they're surviving, but again, very tightly jumbled. Cincinnati's 8 for me, Gil. I think the Bengals just played 2 really bad games in a row. And then other than that, they've been really consistent this year. They just happened to high-profile bad performance against a horrible team in the Jets, and Mike White obviously was great in that game. And then they flipped it around with giving Cleveland 42 points. Other than that team's been pretty consistent and pretty good the entire season. Indy's at 9. I think they're incredibly talented offensively. Great coach who has really played to his strengths very well. The defense, I still have a few questions, but Darius Leonard's a stud. The only problem with them is they may miss the playoffs because of how jumbled the AFC is in their 500. I didn't want to put the Ravens in there, but they keep winning. I don't think they're that good, but they're 8-3, and they have a head coach that I think is a top 5 head coach. So they, just on the virtue of finding ways to win, they come in at number 10. I'm just waiting for them to lose a game, and then as soon as they lose their next one, I'm knocking them out.
I think the beauty of the power rankings this year has been that as it's fleshed out, no one's going to really argue that much with your top 3 or 4 teams. But once you get past that, like I got the Colts at 5. People will lose their mind at that. Right? I got the Niners at 9 and the Titans at 10. People will lose their minds on those. But what these do is they cause you to think of things a little differently than you might normally. This isn't a straight, what will the spread be assessment kind of thing. This is different. You have different ways to come up with your power rankings. Mine is more of a long-term proposition thing. When teams are at full strength, this is what they ought to be right now. And I still think teams like the Colts, you're right. The Colts are a team that is 6-6, so they got work to do to get there. But it's 7 teams. Their schedule is somewhat favorable. It's not outlandish at all for them to get in the postseason. And I'll say this about the Colts and the Titans. Titans at full strength. Those are the 2 teams you do not want to play in the postseason. With Frank Reich and Mike Vrabel as coaches who get how to coach in-game, let's see how those age. Happy to see where this goes in January. But Cardinals, Packers, Bucks, 1, 2, 3. We were consensus on that.